Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm Bobby Howard. With me today, as always, we've got Jameson Maxwell, Ty Lee, and folks took a little bit of a week off after our OU building rankings, that was a fun pod. Love that. Check it out. It's live in the feed right now. And we're hitting you live early, a day early from our usual Wednesday shows due to the Oklahoma City Thunder's playoff run, which has been super fun, super exciting. Jameson not wearing the tux today. I see. You only dress up for big road games. I was never wore a tux to the pod though. I feel a little offended.
I think that'd be a good idea. For context, I was going to a wedding on Saturday, game 3. The game 3 is at 2:30. The wedding was at 5:30, 10-minute walk. Made it perfectly. Had plenty of time. But as soon as I walked into that arena wearing the tuxedo, everyone's like, "Oh, you the halftime performance?" I'm like, "Shut up. I'm so tired of hearing this joke." I heard it way too much. Way too much.
Oh, God.
They're like, "Nice suit, brother." I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like, man, I'm sorry. I'll just say this. Dallas fans, they were chippy, but I was very disappointed in you Dallas fans. But I'm not going to start Dallas beef on an Oklahoma Sooners podcast. But, disappointed in them a lot.
Right. I mean, there are a lot of OU fans who are Mavs fans. And we don't want to get too divisive here. We're all Thunder fans here. But, we don't want to get too divisive on it. They gave you a little bit of chirping, but not too much, and it wasn't too clear unless you were really looking for the lapel pin that you were a Thunder fan. So, I don't know. Anyways, we're not here to talk about the Thunder. We're here to talk about the Sooners because even though no games are going on, college football, as we all know, continues to roll in this era of the NIL and the portal, and we're talking about. Look, this is far from breaking news or a rapid reaction or anything like that. But Damonic Williams, the TCU transfer committing to OU recently was just massive, and we really have to talk about it. What the impact of that transfer is on OU, on the defense. How does this change? The ceiling of that unit, all of that. It's going to be exciting. But we got to address the very obvious tie here. TCU getting a TCU guy like TCU's best player, it's pretty fun, isn't it, Ty? You got to admit, Bowden Blake got to be just rolling, just shaking, not shaking in his boots, but just shaking his fist angrily at the sky right there.
Yeah, it is nice. A big proponent for a long time of the transfer portal. Blake, it is nice to see once again. What I've been telling everyone since before the transfer portal, this will only ever hurt the small schools. So it is nice to see that happen because, as we all know, I have long stood against any small school being relevant in college football. College football was ruined when Baylor started winning games back in the RG3 era. That's when it all went downhill. And it's good to see that the portal and NIL are finally correcting some of that. And we're just going back to total domination by the Blue Bloods. So love to see that. And a great addition for OU with experienced veteran seasoned D linemen coming on. Really what we've been talking about for forever. It was the cornerback of maybe not the right term, not the cornerback, the cornerstone of those Venables championship teams at Clemson. Yeah, no, the Venables championship teams and championship defenses at Clemson. Really built around a really, really, really strong D-line. So something that's been missing, great addition for this super squad.
Yeah, don't expect this to be your Dexter Lawrence. Don't expect this to be like Clellan Ferrell. It's not that. But the big thing with this is no matter how much rose Schooner, whatever, crimson tinted glasses that you have on, everyone knew deep down, and you would, whine about it a little bit, but everyone knew deep down that this defensive line had no business in the SEC. The offensive line also didn't have a lot of business, but especially the defensive line. We had the potential, but the interior was just not it. And our pass rush is not it. And if we have guys on the outside that we think can get to the quarterback, but just haven't been, like R. Mason Thomas and PJ Adebawore, they need help in the interior to create pressure. We were not getting that last year. Damonic Williams should be that guy for us. And that's why he's so important. It might not be the immediate effects where you say Damonic Williams in this season propelled himself so much and played so well and is stat padded so much that he's going to be a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. What my hope for is getting this is we got a guy who is getting double teamed all of last year and will get a lot of attention to at least let those guys on the outside actually get a pass rush.
Right. I mean, it's easy to get excited about a guy who, really was at the time the biggest transfer portal target by far, coveted by everyone. Defensive linemen are hard to come by, but you're right. This guy isn't going to be, unless he develops really quickly. And Todd Bates, of course, is an incredible, D-line coach. He's not that guy, but he's a position of absolute need. Absolute need. We've been preaching this for months. Especially after Jacob Lacey's medical retirement. And, my expectations are a guy who fills a direct need, a massive hole. I think he'll be a solid, serviceable, great player that, I'm thrilled about, and also it really just ends a lot of the conversation, a lot of the talk that OU's broke, OU won't go in and win a big recruiting battle. All of that's over. If OU wants to go in, get a good player, they did. They beat some of the best in the business at getting transfers for this one. So that aspect was great. That felt awesome. But in terms of like ceiling of who this guy can be, I think he's pretty good. But I don't get too overwhelmingly excited about it. Got to keep expectations.
I think the word ceiling is one of the most important things when talking about him in this scenario, because before getting Damonic Williams, this defensive line ceiling was very stagnant. I didn't think it had too much leeway of up or down. You kind of knew what you were going to get, and it was going to be pretty mid. With him now, like you said, Bobby, there's a lot of room to go. Like the way he played 2 seasons ago made you think that this guy could be an absolute stud. He is, but like this could be like, easy, like day 1 note, end of conversation. Last season, he didn't look as good, but as he comes into our system and he has more, people next to him drawing more attention, hopefully that opens up so many avenues. And the big thing is whenever you have one weak link on your defense, it's going to completely change the next levels behind, like if we were having deficiencies in our interior defensive line, it's going to cause the linebackers to have a lot more stress to not be they're going to essentially be the 1.5 line instead of the second line. You don't want Danny Stutzman having to be the 1.5 line. It's a great thing to have in your back pocket, but you want him to be the second line. You want Billy Bowman and the corners to be the third line. You don't want a weak link. And I'm not ready to go and jump and be like, oh, getting Damonic Williams completely changes things. I still think we have a lot to worry about on our defensive line. And I think not getting Jermayne Lole is a very big deal that not enough people are talking about. But it does make you have more optimism, and all those doom and gloomers can be like, okay, I see why there can be some optimism here in the ceiling of this position group.
Yeah, Jameson, you touched on an important point. I mean, it makes me think back to sort of second half of last season, especially when we had I think it was almost 5 games, definitely 4 games in a row, where there was just no pressure whatsoever.
No sacks
on
by
the tape or on the stat line. Yeah, there was just nothing coming from the day. They weren't necessarily getting exposed all the time, but they just were unremarkable. And like you said, the linebackers had to step up, pun intended there, and be in the, closing gaps and getting pressure in the line more than they should. And that opened us up to a lot of stuff. So yeah, continuing to patch up that D line is going to be super, super important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to me, it's like the biggest thing has been, the D line it's not going to be a standout unit, but it's not going to be a liability. And I think that's really all you need given the strength of other positions within the defense. And because I think before him, I think it was kind of a liability. I think you were asking a lot of young players to step up, or a lot of players who just aren't quite at that grade yet. So I think it's a good ad, but it's not, this isn't like, like the Heat adding LeBron, like in 2010, nothing like that. No.
And a lot of people, are talking about like, oh, I feel so good in Grayson Halton. I get people going off and being like, oh, Grayson Halton can take the next step. We've been hearing that for a couple of years now. Here's the thing. Yeah, that's a dream. He really could, but this is a conversation we've had before. So if you're going to put that out and like count on this guy stepping up, I'm not counting on it. If I'm pleasantly surprised next year, great. Grayson Halton, you can pleasantly surprise me. But in terms of like, you know what you're getting from DJ Terry. You know what you're getting from him. You don't know what you're getting from Grayson Halton. Other guys in the interior. I'm not going to talk about the freshmen. They'll come in, they'll do their things. But like, Devon Sears, my boy from Texas State. How high is his ceiling? It's truly not that high. If we want to live up to the expectations of Oklahoma this season, you've got to dominate on the offensive and defensive line. And that's where our biggest worries are. And this at least raises things up to where it's like, hey, remember DraftKings putting us at over under 6.5 wins this season, right? Like, it's because in the trenches, we've got a lot of deficiencies. And football teams in college football, like Michigan last year, they won in the trenches, period. And that's, everyone will look at the position groups and, the quarterbacks and the wide receivers. College football needs interior defensive linemen so bad. And that's why you see Jermayne Lole getting poached as soon as Texas has the opportunity to take him away whenever they can use the Damonic Williams commitment against us.
Yeah, and I don't know how to feel about that, because it is a bummer. It really does suck to lose a guy, especially to lose a guy from, to Texas. But, that's just kind of a part of it. You can't pay everyone big money. And when Texas has a big offer on the table and all that's freed up all of a sudden, it opens you up to, having a couple of your guys snagged. And yeah, this does take away a little bit of opportunity for Lole, in terms of, or it took away opportunity having Williams on board. So I get it. I definitely understand why you make that move. It's just unfortunate that it had to happen. That's just kind of the market, though.
Can someone explain to me, and again, for those who are longtime listeners of the Schooner Pod, and by long time, I mean more than one episode, you will know that I am very much the casual that on this podcast compared to my co-host Bobby and Jameson. But can someone explain to me why it is necessarily, quote unquote, sad to lose someone who failed at Arizona State, failed at Louisville, and now is going to Texas? Like, I understand if it's like a big or something.
Louisville. That's how you got to phrase it.
Let me read his 2023 stats: 6 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. That's worth millions of dollars.
Is that really
at Louisville? Let me read you Louisville's 2023 schedule. They defeated impressive teams such as Murray State Racers. They beat Indiana. They beat Boston College. They did beat Notre Dame. That's not that impressive, though. So it's like I don't understand why this is worth millions of dollars. I think we dodged a bullet here.
Yeah, he did better in his past than what he did last year, and I don't know how many games total he played. He only played 5 games. Is that what it's saying? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 games. Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, 19 total tackles. The big picture with Lole is, and this is why you see people giving him big money. It's because the supply and demand of people that are 300 plus pounds and can be productive. Even I'm not saying this guy, he's going to be a dominant force for Texas. I mean, could he? I can't put anything out, but 6'3", 310 pounds, interior defensive lineman. You want depth. You want 3 deep, at that position, at least, with defensive tackle, nose guard, of coming through and rotating. The thing is, whenever it comes down to things, you don't have that in college football right now. These young guys, a lot of them transfer, and whenever you have so many big time programs, say USC, LSU, Texas, us, all really gunning hard because they have extreme deficiencies in the interior of the defensive line. That's why he moves on. I truly don't think that he moved on for the money or anything of that sort. He committed to Oklahoma when we were actively going after Damonic Williams. I think he knew that Dominic was going to be with him if they accepted once he came, when they did the whole spring game together, So I'm not convinced he has more opportunity at Texas. My whole thing here is I just think people can really convince you. And I think that Texas came through and really convinced him, gave him a couple extra dollars, and then gave him a good pitch and changed his mind. Simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're spot on there.
Yeah. And Jimmy's bringing up any news on Lane. So that's the next guy of could we take in Jermayne Lole? And Brandon Lane, for people who don't know, he is the Stephen F. Austin defensive tackle. And seems like this was a guy that I think that OU was feeling pretty good about from when reading the message boards, but LSU and USC have just fired in and they have just taken the show here. And to be completely honest with you, for looking at interior defensive line recruiting in the transfer portal, I wouldn't be surprised if we just stay away until someone new comes in the portal. Unless we get someone random that's a low end person, I don't think we're going to be making any more big time offers. Just because I don't think there's anyone else worth it. Because I'll give you credit because Lole, yeah, for what the supply was, he's worth it. We have a lot of demand at the interior defensive line, and he is in the upper echelon of what the supply is. But everything's relative. Is he going to be a good supply once you compare himself to the rest of the interior defensive line in the country? No, he'll be pretty average. But for who's available, and if you want to be 3 deep at the position group, he's right there, and he could be a contributor for you.
Right.
Schooner Pod discovers basic economics.
Oh man, big time business guy over here.
Yeah, I will say, yeah, it is a little funny on paper when you look at it, but I mean, Jameson's right. It's very valuable, especially the teams that need defensive line help. Texas just lost a ton of dudes to the NFL to portal. It's
NFL
a portal.
That's kind of how it is nowadays.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah, they lost a lot of guys portaling to the NFL. So
they lost both of their interior defensive linemen in the draft, and those are day 1 and 2 picks.
Right. So it makes sense. It makes sense. And OU obviously needs it. So everyone's trying to keep up in this just insane arms race. And yeah, I think sometimes there are sillier decisions like that, but you need that. You just need that. So I think your trepidation is fair.
And to be completely honest with you, how about I throw this question at y'all? And I know some people talk about this, but actually in reality, think about it and answer it truthfully. A lot of people are saying, I'm okay if we don't take another interior defensive line because I want David Stone and Jaden Jackson to get more run. I don't want to be a pessimist for this season, but in actuality, I worry about what Oklahoma has. And I think that next season, the one after this, 2025 is a more realistic opportunity for Sooners to succeed with Jackson Arnold being in his junior year. Is it worth it if there wasn't going to be that much of a bump in production and getting a portal guy at the interior defensive line, of just letting your young guys get more reps, knowing that it might not give you the better production this season, but might have gains incrementally next season?
I think there are two sort of thought processes to why I think playing young players is a good idea. One being that experience is the best teacher. The best way to learn is to just get out there and do it, even if that means getting your ass kicked by guys who are bigger than you, older than you, and more technical than you. Then yeah, that's not that.
But is it worth it being worse? Is what I'm trying to say.
Right. I'm saying like that makes sense, and I think it's worth it to be worse as well. Not only are these guys getting better experience, but they are getting playing time, which means they won't get upset and leave. Which, I mean, Jameson, you said it yourself. Defensive linemen are a massive commodity. Even you don't have to be insanely good to get a lot of money on the market. If David Stone is sat most of the year, doesn't get a lot of burn, he can command a massive NIL paycheck to go somewhere else.
You got to think he wouldn't be that type of guy to do that, right?
I don't know, man. Like I'm just saying, like we've seen weird stuff happen in the NFL or in college football nowadays, and I'm not looking into any of the rumors of David Stone wants to transfer already, blah blah blah. That's just message board BS started by people on the Missouri boards or whatever. It's just
you've been reading the Missouri boards.
No, I've just been reading comments and message board geniuses and all that garbage. All of that's just not real. That's not real life. But I mean, we've seen guys get upset due to lack of playing time and want to leave, and not only one is it easier to leave, but two, there's actually a financial incentive to leave. Even in some cases, like I don't know, I'm like sometimes playing time isn't even enough. I mean, look at Caden Green, he's still left. Like it's silly. Yeah. So things can happen, but
pick your side. I want both of y'all to pick a side.
No.
Would you rather be worse? And I just throw away, I'm just saying this scenario, and it's going to be very black and white. Would you rather be worse knowing that you would be better next season for OU, giving your young guys more run, or would you rather take a slight bump to be better this season and maybe your guys won't get as much growth? Hard question.
It's not.
Talking professional, people love development. But in college, it's hard to develop.
It's not a hard question. I'm not even trying to do this to be dissenting to Bobby. To me, it's so clear cut. It's if you think about like old college football, like 10 years ago, college football, absolutely. The right decision is play your young guys, build a team towards like a target date that you have to be ready. That's just not the landscape anymore. Everyone is a mercenary. Everyone has to be looked at as a mercenary. Oh, let's develop these young guys. Cool. Thanks for developing this dude for Ohio State to have next year as a better developed player. Like, it's silly. You have to take everything that you can while you have it. And like looking at OU's schedule, right? This is going to be tremendously clippable thing if stuff blows up, right? But you have to realistically look and say, Bama is going to have a down year. They are not going to be what they were without Saban, right? No matter what happens in the OU-Bama game, that some coach from Washington is not going to come in and do what Nick Saban did. LSU just lost the Heisman winner. It's a Brian Kelly team. Like, who knows what they're going to do? You have to assume that that's a down year as well, right? Like we must strike while the iron is hot. We will at least have the advantage of playing so many teams that just haven't played us regularly before. I understand they can go watch tape. I understand they're well-prepared teams, blah, blah, blah. But there is that new factor of coming into Norman. Obviously, that affects us as well. As we go and play basically all new teams, we go to new places and everything else. But we have to maximize the team, I think, for the right now. We don't know who we're going to have. You never know when some guy's going to have some sort of medical condition, when someone's going to transfer, everything else. I think absolutely going forward in college football, you have to live it, one season at a time. I don't think it's smart to go towards the team building, I think you have to look at this and say, what have pro teams been doing? Look at their personnel management environment, and then think about the fact that we have even a less secure one. How are we going to maximize? I think we should go to the extreme, right? I know it's a little bit extreme, but I think we just have to extreme maximize, essentially forget developing players at this point. You can always poach them from someone else who will develop them.
Yeah. So
That's
you're
the
saying
Missouri
tie.
vibe.
Yeah.
That's not a Missouri vibe. Missouri's not even good. I'm talking about doing that and then winning.
So say if David Stone, and let me use NCAA ratings just to put this in perspective. Say David Stone's like a 74 right now, and Jane Jackson's a 73. You're saying this season, if we have the opportunity to take a grad transfer that would play above them, that is like a 77, you would do it.
I mean, it depends on the group and the need. Right?
That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying, just straight up.
I don't.
Would you rather take the grad transfer?
I haven't played that game in like over a decade, so I don't know the difference.
Don't think about the game. I'm just talking about just a slight difference.
77 versus 73. Like, how different is that? Is that like
okay? They're going to be above them on the depth chart, but their production's only going to be a little bit better, but not too much better.
But I don't. That's like a subjective statement.
I know.
So
I'm trying to prove a point.
I
just want to get what people are thinking right now.
If you're talking about like it's worth 0.5 or 0.25 more wins per season, if you want to start to like quantify it mathematically, obviously that's not. But like
that's a lot for one player.
Okay, say one player increases your percentage chance of winning a game by 0.5%, then. Yeah, that's probably my threshold.
Bobby, what do you think on that? Are you of the fact that it's maybe in this position that we're in right now, it'd be worth it just to defer and just let those young guys have it? Or should we keep on pushing in the portal and for just a slight bump? Because obviously if say sometime later, a grad transfer hops in the portal and they're like, they'd be an 82 in NCAA 25 rather than a 77. You take them. That's worth it. But a slight bump, like, are you screaming from the mountaintops for Brandon Lane? Because I'm not.
I mean, I'm not exactly. I feel pretty happy with Williams with what we have right now. I mean, yeah, you can add more, but I also don't disagree that you want to be as good as possible and then just let everyone compete for it. We've seen that. With Venables, there aren't any, sacred cows, so to say, about how about positions. One of his favorite guys, Jaron Kanek, lost his role and was able to fight, get it back, lost it again. That's something that I think is valuable to any competitive environment. So if you want to add a guy with the caveat of like, hey, you're gonna have to fight for this role. Same with you, Stone and Jackson. You're gonna have to fight for your roles too. That's fine. But I'm not. I think financially that's probably not worth it after putting a lot of your chips in. For Williams, I feel like there is such a thing as overkill. And I'm not saying we tank this year or like don't try to go all out, especially with the amount of experience we have on defense. But it's one of those things where does that help you all that much? Is it worth that money? Probably not. I feel like in-house there's enough you can work with at this point. And that's the thing. Williams changes that equation entirely in my mind.
Yeah, it makes you feel good about your first line, but obviously the second and third line, who are the guys that will be coming out whenever the drive extends? And Damonic Williams has already played for 5 plays in a row. That's an important part. The people are driving. You're on the 40-yard line. You're bringing in your second unit. Do you feel ready, Jaden Jackson, to come in, play in the interior, make a big play, or is he going to screw up and let a run go right by him for 15 yards? That a grad transfer wouldn't do. In the grand scheme of things, if we're getting a guy that we're already not too sold on, and it seems like Brandon Lane, we are not the most sold on him. I'm sure we'd be happy to have him, but for to go through all the effort and the price of everything, it's just not worth it. The point of diminishing returns, like you can't really figure out if it's going to be that significant of a impact to your team to get him. It'd be nice to, but is it significant enough? We don't know. So I am at the point right now to where I know if we keep, David Stone and Jane Jackson ready and can go out there and make good snaps. And even if they do screw up some next season, I think that's totally worth it. And the recipe for success, in all honesty, is doing that for these guys. And then even though it sucks for teams, like having guys leave as a junior to go in the NFL, because then recruits see, oh, hey, I can come through and I can sit a year and then play a year and then go in the NFL. That we just need to get that. In our defensive line production, we just haven't had that yet. That's got to change.
Yeah. You know what else? What is the NIL bag that was thrown out for some of these guys?
So the rumors on Damonic Williams, and the funny thing is, like we were talking about this a little bit in one of our group texts, that these basketball recruits have been coming out and they're like, oh, they just acquired $2 million worth of total NIL packages in this, and that's getting released. And college, all you'll do is you'll just hear things from message boards, podcast, etc. It seems like, for what I've heard from the multiple places I've read and heard, seems like it was just under $1 million for Damonic. I think that's what it was, just under $1 million. But I'm pretty sure, it's hard to tell what's real and what's not, because a lot of the opposing fan bases will say like, oh, they're ready to throw $1.2 million at Damonic. How much is that actually real, or how much is that? If I'm the team, say if I'm LSU in this scenario, and LSU has been known already thus far, their NIL package is lacking. They're not doing a good job in their NIL transfer department. If they know that they're losing the race, why not release things and be like, oh, that's a lot of money that we're not going to pay, make their fans feel better that somebody else is paying too much. It's just, what people are doing to cope.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I mean, you just nailed it on the head right there. It's all cope right there. They'll be like, oh, they just paid so much money for a 1 year throwaway. Yeah.
Which is great. Let them pay.
Cool.
There's no salary cap right now. We're not in the era right now. And I know that might be a thing in the future where, oh, you might have a salary cap and you can only pay this X amount of money. And we're not in that right now. And if we have donors that are willing to pay that money, great, do it. I don't care.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like like in the NBA, for example, where you can sign a guy to a massive albatross of a deal, and it.
Yeah, it's like the Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet for Houston last year. Like what you doing?
Yeah, Bradley Beal, that sort of thing. It's not like that, because technically the guy could there's a finite period of time where it ends. So I'm fine with it. It's all good. I think it smells like broken here, if you ask me.
I will say, sort of little callback to a previous pod, but I know we have many NIL donors who listen to this podcast, but the entire Price building was $18 million, and that's going to be there for decades,
yes.
And is not transferring whatsoever. So for the same amount, for getting some failed bum from another school who's going to be a mercenary for us and look at a stepping stone to the NFL, you could just get at least a wing of a building that will permanently be there.
That's a B-tier building, Ty.
Yes, now that Price is
okay. Yeah, you guys are talking about you guys are talking about C- maybe tier players being worth $1 million a year to maybe up our win percentage to be an 8-5 team.
I think
and tank for a better.
If Oklahoma added another Price building on campus, would you be excited?
Like call it Price Hall and put it right next to the other Price, like we've done with the Headingtons. Shout out to the Headingtons. They know where to put their money.
Talk about the NIL people, yeah.
Yeah, I want an arms race from our donor families to just have no distinction whatsoever. Do the exact Headington thing. Keep donating money. Keep naming the buildings the exact same thing that serve the exact same purpose, and there's no distinction between them whatsoever.
We're trying to tier rank 9 Headingtons, 8 Sarkeys.
All right, what do you think about the Headington family? Okay, where are they? Are they above the Sarkeys?
Absolutely. That is an S tier. That is an S tier donor.
Tier ranking the donors. Well, the Headingtons just won that big Hollywood award as well for the Everything Everywhere All at Once, I believe. I don't know what the name of the award is. Yeah, he was the producer for that, or executive producer, whatever. Headington.
Who? Headington was the person who made that. I love that movie.
That's a great movie. Wow. All right.
You guys didn't know that?
No. No, I'm not. I'm not a
Still
good.
not knowers.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm very, very poor in entertainment knowledge.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Well,
yes. Oscar. It's an Oscar is the award.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's. We know things.
Yes.
The Academy
everything, everything,
Academy
everywhere,
Awards.
all at once. Won 7 Oscars.
And Headington.
I would like to know Headington's donation to that movie to win 7 Oscars, because it seems like the ROI is much better than football at this point, because we've won 7 national championships with God knows how many billions.
Boat.
Yeah.
Like you get it for a little bit of a season, but then just money pits in the off season.
Yeah. I just I love. Oh yeah, the Oscars.
Yes. Headington also produced beloved movies such as Rango,
Like
the Cowboy
the
Lizard one with Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Johnny Depp Lizard. Okay.
Oh yes, okay. Thank you for describing that, because I didn't know it was.
I know.
His movies are easier to distinguish than his Headington halls, because they are all dormitories and they are all right next to each other. Oh, I mean the Headington Hall that's a dormitory on Lindsay.
Which Headington Hall is the everything everywhere all at once of Headington Halls? I don't know. This is just word spaghetti at this point. So let's just all right. Do we have anything else on this one, guys? Or we already wrapped this thing up?
Yes. OU fans, do not be upset that we lost a failed ASU player and failed Louisville player to Texas. I don't know why anyone would be upset about that.
It's climbing upwards, I guess.
Yes. He's kind of the Kiffin of D linemen.
The Kiffin of D linemen. Oh, man. All right. Well, that's all we got.
Don't respond.
So barring any wildness on the NIL portal stuff, that's pretty much probably the last real big bit of football news we'll have in a while. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, big. That felt pretty big. That felt like the acquisition of
Gavin Freeman to Oklahoma State. We didn't talk about it.
Oh yeah, Gavin. Oh God. Yeah, we didn't talk about Gavin Freeman to OSU. Ty's like, I got time.
Another hour. Do we have another hour?
Was that the funniest location he could have ended up?
No, Tech still would have been the funniest, I think.
Tech.
I'm not really sure why, but
Tech would have been wouldn't have been as surprising though. Like
now that
OSU
he's
was kind
not,
of surprising.
It was like I thought he was going to go to
OU.
Kansas State.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that would have been
Matt Wells, right?
Yeah. K-State would have made sense.
I mean, I just don't see, because of the high school he went to, like Tech and K-State don't make sense to me. Oklahoma State does make more sense when I factor that in. But now that he's not on our roster, I truly do wish him the best. And I hope he was not hurt in a freak skiing accident on spring break.
Jesus. Yeah, I could never imagine a short white slot receiver from Heritage Hall ever going to Texas Tech. No examples of that in history.
Yeah, you don't want to live in that shadow.
Yeah, the Welker shadow.
You talk about Crabtree?
No, what? No.
Great Heritage Hall wide receiver. Stellar.
Then it might actually be the complete opposite of a Gavin Freeman, Anyways. Yeah, so we'll probably be talking about some stickball here coming up soon with baseball on a heater. Shout out to the regular season champs there. The Skip Johnson, they've been so fun, y'all. If you're in the Dallas area, make sure to check them out for the Big 12 tournament. Hoping they'll get a regional. The berms for NCAA regional, Jameson. How magical would that be? The 999s up there.
Can you imagine how many free pizzas are going to be in the outfield? Oh my goodness!
Yeah, the real question is, will the NCAA allow the free pizza parties?
Where do they come from? We need to know.
I'm happy that they exist. I don't want to look into it too much because I don't want to accidentally get it to go away because I love it. It's incredible. And then softball, hey, back from the dead. They lost 6 games, but they're back on a roll, marching towards the Women's College World Series. So that'll be fun to talk about as well. So yeah, I don't know. Might have to do a softball show see if I can. I don't know. I'll check my Rolodex and see if I know anyone who's really good at talking softball. I think I do. But anyways, so anything y'all want to say before we bounce?
No.
Yep. Okay, cool. Well, thank y'all so much for listening to the Schooner Pod. If you watch this on YouTube, make sure to give us a like. That helps us out a ton. Comments, all of that engagement really helps us grow. So would love to have y'all help us there. If this is your first time, make sure to hit that subscribe button to see more of our content. We'll be with you throughout the off season and of course into the regular season as well. If you're on podcast, you know what to do. 5 stars, all that good stuff. So, all right. Well, until next time, for me, Jameson and Ty, this has been the Schooner Pod. Have a good one, everyone. Boomer Sooner. And if you're an OKC fan, thunder up, everybody.